this time, it is my distinct pleasure to call the June 2024 Hanover Borough Council meeting to order. Request that we all stand and recite in unison our beloved Pledge of Allegiance and follow that with a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please be seated. Secretary Felix, let's call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Bub?
Here.
Mr. Fuentes?
Here.
Mrs. Funk?
Here.
Mrs. Greenholt?
Here.
Mr. Hegberg?
Here.
Mr. Kress?
Here.
Mr. Lookenbill?
Here.
What?
Mr. Ricart?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Dr. Rupp?
Here.
Solicitor Schultes?
Here.
Manager Lewis?
Here.
Mayor Whitman?
Here.
Secretary Felix, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask Solicitor Schultes to comment on any council executive session and also to comment on some administrative agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Council did not have an executive session prior to tonight's meeting. Council did, however, have an agenda change. The agenda that was published provided for the oaths of 2 new probationary police officers. Unfortunately, the agenda inadvertently omitted a necessary preliminary step, which is their actual appointment. This appointment was, however, approved at the last Finance Personnel meeting of Council last week. So in order to adjust the agenda, we go by a 2-step process. The first is a motion to actually amend the agenda. If that motion passes, then we actually then vote on the new agenda item. And if that passes, we move into the oaths of the office for the 2 new probationary employees. So the first thing that needs to happen is some council member needs to make a motion to amend the agenda as set forth in 5A.
I so motion, Tim.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
And the next item for motion is item 6A.
A motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of 6A, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I guess at this time, we will have Mayor Whitman do the oaths of office
The oath that's longer
with
than
our
the
distinguished
president.
chief.
You look better this afternoon. Ours were the same. Ours were the same too. I gotta agree with all that.
When you're done, you'll be able to be president. So first I'm going to say aye, and then you're going to both state your own name. And then you just repeat after me following that. Okay, oath of office for loyalty oath. I
Jamal Jimenez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
And as a police officer,
And as a police officer
I will, for the Borough of Hanover,
for the Hanover of Hanover,
I will diligently
I will diligently
and honestly
and honestly
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
my duties with fidelity.
my duties with fidelity.
I will conscientiously
I will conscientiously
and impartially
and impartially
enforce the laws
enforce the laws
of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the United States of America,
the United States of America,
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the Borough of Hanover.
of the Borough of Hanover.
in obedience to
in obedience to
the proper orders
the proper orders
of competent authority
of competent authority
and in full conformance
and in full conformance
to the civil service rules
to the civil service rules
and regulations
and regulations
and the laws
and the laws
of said Commonwealth
of said Commonwealth
relating to police officer.
relating to police officers.
I will also uphold,
I will also uphold,
obey, and enforce the law
obey, and enforce the law
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability.
handicap, or disability.
I do further swear
I do further swear
that I do not advocate,
that I do not advocate,
nor am I knowingly,
nor am I knowingly
a member of any organization
a member of any organization
that advocates
that advocates
the overthrow of the government
the overthrow of the government
of the United States
of the United States
or this Commonwealth
or this Commonwealth
by force or violence
by force or violence
or other unconstitutional means,
or other unconstitutional means,
or seeking by
or seeking by
force or violence
force or violence
to deny other persons
to deny other persons
their rights
their rights
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
or of this Commonwealth.
or of this Commonwealth.
And I do further swear
And I do further swear
that I will not
that I will not
so advocate,
so advocate,
nor will I knowingly
nor will I knowingly
become a member
become a member
of such organization
of such organization
during the period
during the period
that I am an employee
that I am an employee
of the Borough of Hanover, Pennsylvania.
of the Borough of Hanover, Pennsylvania.
Congratulations, officers. You are officially sworn in. So we have Officer Jamal Jimenez and Griffin Kuhn. Check that out. Okay. And then before you go, I have to sign this for me. Do you want more photo, or you want, go ahead, we'll do this last.
Congratulations, welcome. Congratulations, welcome.
Congratulations, welcome, definitely.
Congratulations to you.
Congratulations, Jamal.
What do you do, guys?
I've been looking forward to seeing you on the street.
See you on the street, but not stop. You see at a social level.
Alrighty, at this time, we will open the in-room microphone up for public comment. I do have a number of slips for those of you who have submitted, and I believe they are in relative order. The first is Kenneth Kuhn. Come to the table here. You're welcome to have a seat. Speak into the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenneth Kuhn. I preside here in the Borough of Hanover at 370 Wilson Avenue. I'm here to talk tonight shortly about the rental inspections. I am aware of the fact that the rental inspection was overturned, and I have to say I'm disheartened by that. One of the things that the inspectors would be looking at, excuse me, is the International Fire Code. The International Fire Code is made because of stuff that has happened in the past. Real quickly, just roughly, in a lot of rental inspections come to find that the attic spaces of rental properties are turned into a bedroom. Attic spaces with small windows and one set of steps. no secondary means of egress. That means that anybody that is trapped up there in a fire is pretty much doomed, okay? There is inspections, the inspections would find these things. The fix to it is to open up a wall and make a larger window and have a throw-out ladder, okay? That's a couple $100. It's a couple $100 fix to make it legal and safer. That is just one instance of a lot of different things that these rental inspections would cover. They'd also cover working smoke detectors. All rental properties must have working smoke detectors. Smoke detectors, we all know, save lives. Other things would be faulty wiring, wiring done by the homeowners. I also install flooring a good bit on my side job. There is a lot of rental people that run wiring under the carpet, okay? It's illegal to do so, but they do it because they do the wiring themselves to save money, okay? But it ends up, it's a life safety issue to the renters, people that don't even know. I also read the article, Madam Mayor, that you say that you feel that it would create more homelessness. I have to disagree with that. I've been a fire inspector for the last 12 years, and in Penn Township, we did rental inspections. Not one place was ever shut down. Okay, we worked with the rental owners to fix the problems. It's mainly education. Okay, it's not the fact that most of them didn't do it to be hurtful to, I shouldn't really say hurtful, but they just don't know what the law is when they get into the business of rental inspections, okay? And it's just a teaching thing. That's all it is. So I really hope that you reconsider, re-vote yes the way you did the last time you voted, and push for rental inspections. The last thing in closing is by taking this away, if you don't allow rental inspections, then the people that have died in these fires because of the reasons that these rules were made all died in vain. Or is a decent place to live. I've lived here now for 22 years. I don't want to see this become the next York City. Let's fix up the problems or the properties that are in dire need and move on and make this place a great place to live. Okay? I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Just a general statement before I call the next individual to give public comment. If, as best as you can, try to keep it or make it less personal. We sit here as a body with individual opinions, and that's the way we conduct business, but I don't think it's productive to single individuals out. With that being said, Mr. Holt, you're welcome to come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Robert Holt, P.O. Box 1131. Mr. Chairman, it's been said times that I can be annoying. And if that be the case, I stand on the shoulders of the men and women who founded this country. I stand on the shoulders of Oliver Wendell Holmes, of Abraham Lincoln, of Thurgood Marshall, and my father, the Honorable T.W. Holt, who said it's okay to be annoying when there are things that are unjust and unfair to the public. So I'll be annoying. I'm pardoned. I rise tonight to urge you to table and hold a public hearing on a $3.1 million contract to upgrade the building at 33 Frederick Street. Despite the fact that the council voted on 4 different times on various technical aspects of this contract, you never once clearly explained to the public why you need to spend 4.5 times more than the purchase price of the building to renovate it and overhaul it. There's never been any explanation about what you need. There's not even been an explanation about how you're going to pay for it. This is a borough that is facing financial issues, living pretty close to the margin. You're resorting to things like pension smoothing, where you restructure your pension contributions to your employees to backload the payments at the back end. So I'm just wondering where you're going to get the money for this. And why can't the public hear what exactly is going to be done with this building? I'm also rising tonight to assert my standing in a case involving a property at 475, 477 High Street, in which a company has opened a marginally legal food operation, has skirted under the laws, and managed to get an Agriculture Department food safety permit in the name of Napoli Hospitality of 612 Frederick Street, which is the same business as Davino's. And SPG Capital is the property owner, and a gentleman named Alan Kuhn is listed as the interested party, but there are no permits, there's no inspections, there was no hearing board for a special exception, there was nothing. I'm asserting my standing and I'm going to oppose this. It's going to come up at some point. You might as well get used to the fact you're going to hear from me. And finally, I think you need to change your planning and zoning hearing process, that it front loads and ensures the public hears early on in the process and up front what is being proposed in their neighborhoods when the proposal is submitted to the borough engineer and prepared for review by the planning commission, instead of waiting into issuing letters and notices just before the zoning hearing board, which by your own admission leaves you with no latitude of hearing the issues and the concerns of the community. It's so narrow and legally technical that there's a lot of things you can't even consider at that point. Why can't the public hear up front during the planning process so they have a chance to have input? It's wrong. It's unjust. It has to be changed, and you can do it. And on a final note, I thank you that you're going to reopen the zoning hearing, the zoning ordinance, to review some issues and leave that with the Planning Commission to come up with some recommendations. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, next we will hear from Grace, I believe it's Mullen.
Right.
Alrighty, I couldn't be sure.
Well, I checked, I wrote some notes here. And I have to tell you, I looked at Robert's Rules of Orders before this meeting to see if I needed to know something. And I'm waiting for, does the clock thing for 3 minutes go on? Should I be watching sand coming down?
We'd ask you to...
I will certainly keep it to 3 minutes. My name is Grace Mullen. I call myself a professional volunteer in Hanover. I retired as Dean of Admissions and Advising at a small college, Southern Virginia University. I have been volunteering at New Hope, Thrive, HAC. I've started a senior center. I've worked with the people in Hanover for the 8 years I've been here. I have to tell you, one of my first projects, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have no paid ministry, so I am the Just Serve representative. My job is to get people from different walks of life, different churches, different community organizations together to serve the community. So that's why you see me poking my head up everywhere. The borough has been really helpful. The mayor came and helped with our Hanover cleanup that I started and many other things. So I have nothing but good things to say about the borough. I had to learn a lot. It's a learning curve, and I've just started attending these meetings so I can learn about you guys and the way you run the borough. And I'm way down here. I'm working up. But one of the things when I had to learn when I first came to Hanover, my first project was to start a food drive at our church. And I said for Hanover No, for New Hope, Well, this should be easy, right? It's 30 a month, I want 30 jars of peanut butter. Until about the third week, and I'd gotten about 6 jars, and I'm going, uh-oh, got a problem here. And once, we call our people sisters, sister came to me and said, no, I'm sorry, I just can't fit that into my budget, into my weekly budget. Made me realize what we're dealing with in Hanover, so many local income people that we need to help. Now, for the whole time I've been here, I have heard countless stories about unreasonable landlords and drug paraphernalia in the parking lots, rent increases, unsanitary, blah, 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 blah. You can't say anything, but then they won't renew your rent. So when I heard about this ordinance and it was voted on, I'm going, yay, team, we're working on this, hot dog, I'm excited. And so, the poor mayor, I got on her case. I was not happy when she vetoed it. I understand there's 2 sides to every story. So I've been trying to educate myself. I have talked to so many people this last week, and most of them don't respond, okay? I have to admit, I've probably sent 50 emails and gotten 4 responses. I understand. Just trying to find out more about one of the points the mayor mentioned to me personally, Section 8 housing, which would not be included in this inspection. Just for your information, and that's, as I understand, and I'm just learning, that's under the, and I did talk to Chris today, sometime, under the York County Housing Authority. Now, when I went back to look at these people who have all been talking to me about, well, I found out the units, there are 6 units that I'm aware of, that's how Section 8. Guess who the people are that are complaining to me? Probably 9 out of 10 are Section 8, so it's not going to help with those people. The other problem I'm concerned about, and again, I know the mayor's talked about this too, but when I hear something, I go check it out. I've been checking through the storage units, garages. I think you would be appalled at the number of people who are living in attics, as he talked about, attics, garages, storage units, using behind garages that are open all night, sleeping there and using their bathroom. The poor is a bigger problem than I had really realized before I started this. And I agree, it's time to start. I know I've been working on this ordinance for years. I understand that, and I know it's time to start talking and do something. But I'm not sure, maybe they do, but I'm not sure the council had all the information they needed when they made their vote. Maybe they did. Okay, lost my place. Terrible, haven't been doing this for a while. Anyway.
If I could ask you to start to wrap.
I do, I have one more sentence.
Appreciate that.
One more sentence, if I could only find it. And I told the mayor, I thought it seems to me it would be interesting, it would be a good idea to change the veto to tabling that motion, to look into some of these things and I know there's other people have been looking to, and then revote later when we've had a little more information. I also, because I do volunteers, of course, Chris isn't here, I can get people to help with some of this work that's going to be done when we try to register. You've got the college kids out that need volunteer work for their resumes. Delane High School has kids dying to volunteer, and they're very good at computer. We can help and not make this a big financial thing. Just something to consider.
Okay. Next, we'll hear from Noreen Crooks.
Thank you so much. Lorene Crooks. I live in West Manheim Township. However, my husband and I own 3 properties in the borough. We had no idea about the rental property registration inspection program study. We still mow our grass and clear our snow at our properties. We pay our taxes. We support our law enforcement and all fire and emergency responders. And we agree that safety is not negotiable. Not just safety in rental properties, the safety in all properties. I would imagine there's homeowners who have wires running under their rugs and have people living in their attics. So we learned of this ordinance on the morning of the May meeting, and we're extremely disappointed that it was passed hours after learning about it. However, we are very grateful for the opportunity to further discuss it tonight. Being in the dark, I did a little research in the last 24 to 48 hours, which wasn't easy. So based on the survey prepared by the Lepson Research Group that I think everybody is referring to, I'd like to present some facts. The data collection methodology, the specific technique utilized was an online survey. The respondents were also provided with the opportunity to acquire a paper survey from the Borough of Hanover and return the hard copy directly to the borough office. How are people notified about this survey? We own 3 properties. We get a trash bill, a water bill, a sewer bill. We pay taxes. We knew nothing about this survey. And we therefore feel that we had absolutely no opportunity to voice our opinion. Although we've reached out to some council members, it seems like there's a lot of confusion as to how that survey was presented to the public. We knew nothing of it until the morning of the May meeting, and then randomly on Facebook at like 8 in the morning, my husband saw somebody rallying support the efforts of the ordinance, which was a tip-off for us. We did zoom into that meeting and watch. However, we watched in disbelief that it passed with so little details. According to the report, which I pulled off the website, a total of 609 surveys were received. Of those 639, 537 were able to be used. I have to question, is that a reasonable sample also of a city of 15 to 20,000 people? To me, that seems like it's like 3.5% of the population. Further, of these 537 people, 307 of these people were homeowners who live in their homes. That's 57.2% of the sample amount that were homeowners living in their own homes. 115 were renters, which is 21.6%. 71 people were actually rental property owners. That represents 13.4%. Very respectfully, and I swear to you, I mean this with total respect, it's easy to impose rules and regulations if you yourself aren't affected by them. The survey further states, rental property owners were more likely to cite less support and greater concern when compared to all other homeowners and renters. Worthy of note, however, the survey says, over 1/3 of those respondents, and that 1/3 is referring to the rental property owners, indicate a level of support. Let me tell you what that number is. 17.4% is 12 people who said they're very supportive. 17.4% said they're somewhat supportive. So in my opinion, that is not a very big number. I'm almost done. Perhaps we should consider code enforcement for all homeowners, not just rental units. We all want homes to be safe. And it certainly would seem less targeted and much more inclusive. I understand we have an excellent code enforcement officer. Let's enforce what's on the books for all borough homes and neighborhoods. Let's listen to valid complaints of tenants and neighbors, then take necessary action accordingly. But to move forward with such a huge undertaking based on a biased sample of the population is reckless, in my opinion. In addition, the added cost will most likely end up with the very group who's struggling the most to make ends meet now. There's so many unknowns, there's so many unanswered questions, but to even address them properly, the survey sample should represent all groups, not a biased group. How about a survey sent to the taxpayers? Again, we pay taxes, we get the water bill, we get the trash bill, we mow our grass, we shovel our snow, yet we had no idea about this survey. Our voice was not heard. Please reconsider your decision until such a time that we can have a survey that represents all groups and possibly come up with other ways to keep all our residents and communities safe and fairly represented. I just want to restate, it's not that we're opposed to safety. We're opposed at how unequal all of this information was to everybody. Thank you so much.
Next, we'll hear from Alston Graham.
Good evening. My name is Austin Graham, and I'm a resident of Hanover, 229 Broadway. I'm here today to express my strong support for ordinance number 2369, which aims to ensure that all residential rental units in our community are maintained to the same high standards as owner-occupied homes typically are. As we all know, the condition of our housing directly impacts the safety, health, and overall quality of life in our community. Unfortunately, rental properties that are not owner-occupied often fall short of these standards, leading to unsafe and unsanitary living conditions for tenants. This ordinance addresses this issue by implementing regular inspections to ensure compliance with our borough's safety and maintenance codes. Moreover, this ordinance is not only beneficial to tenants, but also to our first responders. When rental properties are not up to code, it puts our firefighters, police officers, emergency medical personnel, and code enforcement officers at greater risk when they just respond to incidents at these locations. By ensuring that all properties meet the necessary standards, we are protecting those who risk their lives to keep us safe. I also want to highlight a significant concern that I have heard from many tenants that I've spoke with about this ordinance and specifically this meeting tonight. A lot of them support this ordinance, but feel somewhat threatened that their landlords might evict them if they speak up in favor of this ordinance. It's something that has come up multiple times through different conversations I've had over the last couple weeks. I don't have any proof, so take that as you will. This fear prevents them from coming out to show their support publicly. It's also crucial that we recognize how this imbalance of power affects the public comment on this matter and ensure that tenants feel safe to express their opinions without fear of retaliation. I urge the council to pass this ordinance and to uphold the safety and quality of our housing, protect our first responders, and ensure that Hanover remains a great place to live for all residents. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Doris Peterman.
I'm here to speak about the land that Monahan from Gettysburg would like for the borough to donate the swampland to him. I think maybe Monahan ought to do the borough a favor, and he should donate it to the borough so that the borough can get the storm sewer and all that in that wooded area cleaned out. Then he can take a tax break. If he doesn't want to donate it, take it by eminent domain. Because if you allow him to take that land, it's only going to cause another problem for the borough. So that's it. I hope you do the right thing.
Next, Merle Federer. Oh, I actually didn't see you.
Okay. I'm Merle Fetter. I live at 173 Primrose Lane. I've been here before. I'm here about the so-called land swap, and I am asking you, please do not act on this proposal. Think about the residents. We do not need a hotel staring us in the face as we drive down Primrose Lane. We already have one eyesore on Primrose Lane. A similar project was proposed for this site, the same site that Monahan plans to build his hotel on. And I don't know how you plan to build a hotel before it's approved. According to my zoning maps, you need a conditional approval, which comes from all you guys. We spent a lot of money voting down a project very similar. It was for a 42-unit apartment complex for low-income senior citizens. Again, the only person who's going to win here is Monahan. And I agree with Doris that the land that the borough is getting is totally useless. The thing that was sent out here with the minutes showing this is what we got, or this is what you got also, I imagine. Some silly little piece of paper with some rectangles, triangles, or whatever on it. It doesn't show anything how the surrounding area is impacted. It doesn't show anything like that. We're talking about trying to fix the runoff up at that end by fixing the streams. Well, what happens to all the runoff coming from the so-called hotel, projected hotel, and the parking areas that's going to come back down to the end of Primrose Lane, which was what an issue the first time this kind of thing went around. In this memorandum, it says about an area in the most need of repair. Well, how do you define area in the most need of repair when you factor in a hotel at the edge of the wetlands, which this is where this is going to be located? I don't know how many of you are familiar with that area. I don't care if it's called wetlands on a map or not, it's wetlands. And plus planning and engineering has pushed through some other items in the past where I don't think everybody was aware of what was happening, starting with the 2021 revision of the zoning code. Then we had the big deal with short-term rentals. I mean, all of this has been pushed through, and I don't think a lot of people read every line and every word in some of the documents that were presented. So please stop, think, review, and study before you proceed any further with this land swap, because the only person who's winning in this land swap is Mr. Monahan. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Art Becker.
Good evening. Art Becker, 529 Carlisle Street, Hanover, and I represent numerous landlords, tenants, and borough taxpayers who oppose the registration and rental inspection ordinance. So let me summarize where we are in this. Last month, you passed this ordinance without knowing, number one, the cost to taxpayers. Number two, the cost to the borough to implement this program. Number three, the number of new employees that you would need to hire or their benefits. Remember, Mr. Miller told us that you would need to develop a business plan to determine these costs after the ordinance was passed. We don't know the registration fees. We don't know the inspection fees. We don't know the number of residential rental units in the borough. Could be as many as 4,600. Mr. Miller didn't know. We don't even know if Mr. Miller is currently enforcing the registration ordinance. There is an ordinance right now, as everyone knows, that requires landlords to register. And when I asked Mr. Miller if he's enforcing that, he refused to tell me.
Mr. Becker, if you could
So
just make
remember,
it.
we've been
excuse
asking
me.
for this information for 2 years.
Excuse
I
me.
apologize.
All right, just a little less
Mr.
personal.
Ricard, I only get 3 minutes.
You'll have more than that because of my interruption, but if you could just say code enforcement rather than labor.
It was Mr. Miller. I think these people ought to know what is happening. These people came here for answers, Mr. Ricard. I think they deserve some information. And he said that at a public meeting, and you could have been present, but you weren't. All right. So we didn't get answers to any of these questions. Now, either one of two things occurred. Number one, either you have no idea what these answers are, and you pass this ordinance anyway, or number two, you're talking about this behind closed doors, exchanging this information with each other and making decisions in private, which, if that's happening, that could be a Sunshine Act violation. Either way, Mr. Ricard, under your failed leadership, you had what Mr. Moul called, Representative Dan Moul, when he was here, called it your Nancy Pelosi moment, just like Obamacare. You passed this ordinance before we could find out what was in it or what it would cost to taxpayers. Now, the largest landlords, in response to this, are considering all of their options. One option is to sell their properties before you run up the costs. If that happens, just imagine how that would change the character of the neighborhoods if the largest landlords in the borough sold 1,000 rental properties to Section 8 housing, of the companies that own that and run those units. There would be no inspection fees because the landlords don't pay for inspections in Section 8 housing. So think about how that would change the character of your neighborhoods. Those of you who are pushing this saying, well, this is going to make us safer. Would that make us safer if all of a sudden you have 1,000 more Section 8 rental properties in the borough? Remember how relieved everyone was when Jordan bought the McAllister, and he converted that into luxury apartments, and that eliminated, well, significantly reduced the police calls there. Remember that discussion a couple years ago? Just imagine the additional police protection you're going to need when you have 1,000, if this were to occur, 1,000 additional Section 8 rental properties. So the landlords are considering this, and why wouldn't you blame? They don't want to be in business with the borough when you don't even consider the landlord's position on any of the issues. It's your way or the highway. We wanted to compromise. We wanted to talk about options. No communication. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to follow the mayor's recommendation. She vetoed this ordinance for very good reasons. Follow the mayor's recommendation to enforce the existing registration ordinance, to reach out to those tenants, to encourage them to call for inspections. If somebody knows about an apartment in someone's attic, call for an inspection, a free inspection, one that's not going to cost anybody anything. Mr. Miller will do it. And if anybody has people that want to help register and volunteer, I heard that mentioned, volunteer and help people register under the existing ordinance. That's absolutely a great idea. But vote against this ordinance a second time tonight.
Next, we'll hear from Isaac Riston.
Evening. My name is Isaac Riston, that is I-S-A-A-C-R-I-S-T-O-N, and I live at 36 West Hanover Street. In 1979, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that tenants have the right to a decent place to live. This guarantee is called the implied warranty of habitability. Last month, Hanover Borough passed an historic ordinance looking to uphold the borough's mission of promoting the general welfare of our community. Today, council members, you will etch your name in history in either supporting this ideal or getting it. Councilmember Greenholt, you said last month that you feared this would increase taxes to offset the cost of the program. Of the 10 municipalities I talked to, all but one of them said their programs are self-funded by the fee structure, including York City, which, by the way, has one of the lowest fee structures in the county. The one outlier, Red Lion, actually has their fire department conduct these home inspections before COVID happened, and has no such fee structure. So therefore, they have to raise taxes. That's just how that goes. Ultimately, council votes on fee structures every single year. In fact, all of you voted in January to include an $85 life safety inspection of building permits. Imagine that. A business has to have a life safety inspection, but the apartments above it don't. Interesting. Further, we have an inspection for vacant properties at $150. Again, voted on fee structure, following the same procedure our safety department heads want to follow. Why is it okay to follow the fee schedule path for these inspections? Why is it okay to make sure these locations of the borough are up to code? But when the people, our department heads in charge of safety, want to follow the same procedure for properties where people live, it is apparently wrong. Councilmember Rowland, you said last month that you believe this ordinance is discriminatory. The same reasoning was tried in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania in 2015 and was dismissed by the panel of judges in regards to the Fair Housing Act and Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission because landlords are not a protected class. Additionally, though, this is very important, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission has been an advocate for similar ordinances throughout the state. Reason being, they can help affirmatively further fair housing and thereby minimize disparate impact discrimination against individuals with disabilities. 9 years ago, our comprehensive plan talked about the problem we have with rental units in the borough and asked for action. 5 years ago, the fire chief talked about the rental unit problem his department has seen in the borough and asked for your action. Last year, all of our department heads in charge of safety told you about the rental unit problem that the departments see in the borough and asked for action. The survey goers gave you their support in taking action, but unfortunately, single-handedly veto stopped that. And in fact, Mayor, you'd rather we collect more data because we need to know how many problematic units we have. Unfortunately, a rental registration program won't find that. The reason being is that no matter how much you beef it up, it will just tell you how many rental units we have in the borough and who lives there. That's the registration part. If you want to know the quality of the rental units, we need to pass an inspection ordinance. It is why we have health inspections for restaurants so we know their health quality. It is why we have car inspections to know their car's safety quality. And why we need a rental inspection so we know the rental quality and safety of rental units. I was asked 1.5 years ago to describe why we need this ordinance in one word. Today, that word is safety. Safety for the children that go to Hanover Public School District. Safety for codes, firefighters, and police officers. Today is for the people who want safety in our community. But council, whose safety will you vote for today? Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Sandy Moul. Okay. Mr. Chesney, Heath Chesney.
Heath Chesney, 321 Spring Avenue. We love the We the People, right? Got the shirts and the stickers and we got the flags. We the people. We the people wanted this ordinance for the rental inspection. We the people told you to work on it. We did for 3 years. We the people told you to send a survey out, which you did. And it came back as a quality sample from the company that we the people paid for. Said that we wanted it, so you went to work. In a committee, back and forth, painstaking, learning the processes, learning how this works. You all, in Public Safety Committee, created the ordinance. Democratic process, awesome. You voted to send it to council, and it went. And then it was voted on, and it passed. We, the people, made it happen. And then it didn't. So the next time you want to sit around and talk about we the people and the government doesn't listen and there's special interests afoot, here it is tonight. So what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to what you've been crowing about for the past 8 years? Or are you going to do exactly what you've been complaining about? You guys worked on this. Carol and Brian worked on this painstakingly. All this time voting on it back and forth, and you bring it here and you're going to vote no? I mean, come on. That's incredible. That's incredible. Scott, you should actually be recusing yourself. I mean, that's an embarrassment in and of itself. No, I know, I get it. It's just a little egregious, you know? I mean, come on. It has to be called out. Do the right thing, for crying out loud. And you know, this stuff happens all the time. You get to work on it on the back end. The fee schedule gets happened once a year. Landlords and everyone can still provide input on how it gets enforced. This isn't a black and white item. It gets approved. We continue to work on it. You have your time to still provide input on this ordinance. Do the right thing. If you bat the blue, approve the ordinance. It's that simple.
Okay. That will conclude in-room public comment. I'll ask community media to help me entertain any online or electronic commentary to council.
Yes, those joining us via Zoom, you're now able to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak to council. I believe we have Mr. Spangler has his hand raised.
Mr. Spangler?
Yes, thank you.
Could we have
I'm Jeff Spangler. I live on Carlisle Street in the 4th Ward. I was at the meeting when the people charged with public health, safety, and welfare, firemen, policemen, code inspection, testified. They made a very compelling case. They are the experts. Your job is to do what is right to maintain the health, safety, and welfare of residents of the borough. What this has come down to is a kind of sleazy behind the scenes political job where the mayor gets her advice from one of our state representatives, and God knows who else is talking to who else about, well, how can we get around this? If there is any resident who is injured or killed as a result of a defect which could have been discovered by the sort of inspection that this ordinance contemplates, you will all have blood on your hands if you veto it. Thank you.
Community, anyone else?
If there's anyone else on Zoom that would like to address council, you can do so at this point.
Seeing none, I'll close public comment at this time and ask that we entertain a motion from council for the approval of the consent agenda.
So motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda being approved, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Turning to page 2, I guess we move into reports of standing committees, the first being Public Works and Facilities. Councilor Rowland.
Okay. I'm going to ask our engineering director to comment on the first. I will make the motion and I'll ask him to take care of any of the questioning because I'm kind of transitioning in this role. So item number 1, consideration of a motion authorizing the notice of intent to award and notice to proceed for 33 Frederick Public Admin Facility Renovation Project as part of the overall Hanover Borough Public Administration and Public Safety Complex Project to Steelworks Construction, the successful bidder, in the amount of $3.1 million, pending the solicitor's review of the document and project architect review of the contractor references.
There a second?
Second.
Any questions for, sounds like Mr. Maines is going to be up to handle them. Any questions on the consideration for Engineering Director Maines?
I do. Do we have a breakdown of what these charges are for?
Are you talking specifically the charges of the building or the overall program that's paying
Or
for
whatever's
the building?
coming to $3 million.
Yeah, so this council, when it moved through the process to adopt the schematic design, the design development drawings, and ultimately the contract drawings, as you did that, the outline of what the project looked like, the various things that were contained inside of it, the contract documents and those things, they were included with that. So all of those improvements that are envisioned for 33 are what make it up. Now, when architects do bidding like this, we don't bid down to, square foot of tile and these things. We look at it on a lump sum basis when we get to projects this large in size. So what we have now is you have a lump sum contract, and what will happen is the contractor will submit what's called a schedule of values, and that will tell us how they intend to proceed with the project. They will tell the finance department how to expect that they'll be requesting payments for those things. But it's not anything, it's like, well, today you're going to pay for 3 tiles, and next week you'll pay for 2 doors. It isn't anything down to that level of detail, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as we go through this process, I'm assuming that you will keep us up to date with in terms of money, in terms of progress with the building.
Absolutely.
That will be on a website, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so this project will be monitored on a weekly basis. The architect will have bi-weekly meetings on site with the contractors to make sure everything is being done the way it's supposed to be. There'll be periodic inspections by both the architect as well as the borough, sort of randomly throughout, to make sure that the contractor's doing what they need to be doing it in a timely manner, doing it in a manner that's consistent with the contract documents, and then all of those information gets pushed back to council so that you have an understanding of where the project's at, how much has been drawn down against the values and things like that. It is a huge undertaking, so it's a lot of involvement.
Councilor Fong?
Well, Eric, I'm still confused. I've been confused since I saw the amount that we're spending, okay? We were well aware of the condition of 33 Frederick Street, and I was told, and somebody said, no, I had it wrong. I'm not sure I did. But that it was ready to go back then, that we could just move right in. I'm trying to visually come to terms with this money and what all we're doing for that amount. And I don't have a clear picture of this amount of money being spent. And I'm thinking also of the taxpayer. Now, I know there were 2 things that brought up. We wanted to put in a council chamber, and I saw a drawing, and I'll be very frank with you. I would sooner sit at a table like this and face you all directly, not down, okay? I'd like to know how much that's going to cost, how much it is to divide or put 2 rooms together, to make 1 large room. I need these things to understand what you're trying to do, and if we're going to frills or things that we don't need. I would have been happy to take this historic tables and take them over and put them in that room, okay? I've heard other things about other communities, municipalities that have tried that upper, like you're looking over the people and not equal to them. That's one thing. The other thing is I want to know more about the community room, where that was brought up, what was decided, why we needed it, what we're going to do in it, and what amount that's going to cost. I need breakdown, Eric. I really do. I'm not trying to stop progress, but when we do this, we have to be responsible for the people's money. And I know we're in dire situations at times, so I really need this breakdown, Eric. I need to see the plans, what the costs are, or what you perceive the costs to be, because your bids are going to come in, okay, and you're going to probably take the lowest bid. The only thing I'm saying there is you might want to think about it depending on the contractor and what we're going to get for our bucks. Okay,
that is the lowest bid. That is the contract
I know,
bid.
but what I'm saying is sometimes we take the lowest bid. It's been in other things that we've done in the past. And we found out that it hasn't worked for us by taking the lowest bid. It would have been better. You understand what I'm saying, Chuck. But I really need to understand it better and to see something, pictures, plans that can say this is why we need it. Not that we just want to do something because it's going to, improve our appearance. What we do here at this table, each one of us, is the important part of it. Not a room, where we completely remodel something and it wasn't necessary to begin with. Prove to me that we need to spend this kind of money for 33 Frederick, and that you haven't looked at other areas in which we can reduce this price and still make it as good. And it's the people that make it for us, really.
I do have couple questions and comments. Eric, how is this being paid for?
So, yeah, this is something that we keep hearing comments about, well, we don't know how we're paying for this, and it's going to be put on the taxpayers and things like that. That's absolutely not true. So, quite some time ago, and we're going to go back the whole way to 2021, the borough received COVID money. You received ARPA money. And you received that money, and what you as a council did with that money was you put it in your capital building project. So that was money that came from the federal government. You put it into your capital budget, and it sat there. Then what you as a council did was you took that money and you went after a RACP grant. So you went after a state grant and you said, hey, I've got $5.5 million. I'd like to get another $5.5 million. And the state said, you know what? That project you're doing, that's worth it. It's a community project. We'll give you that $5.5. So you have the project cost to pay for this. It is not a tax increase. It is not being put on the taxpayers. It's money you already have received through the COVID, and the other money came to you from the state through the grant that you received, that you had your state representatives helped you get all of that, and all of it was built around an argument that for the people, you needed better public safety, you needed better public administration spaces, and you needed these things. In the course of that 3 years, Public Works and Facilities Committee was the one who spearheaded this entire effort. They were the ones who worked on the program. They developed all the conceptual designs. They worked through things. I think Mr. Rowland asked specifically that he wanted Mr. Kress attached to that because he wanted to make sure this was not an effort where we built things that were things we wanted. These were things that were needed. And that has remained the mantra throughout the entire project.
Well, and I said that because I had a experience with Tim at the school district, and
he was at every one of those meetings. He was at the meetings that we went and looked at all sorts of submittals and shop drawings to see the kinds of things that were going to go into this building, to make sure that from his experience, were we buying things that either we didn't need, or were we buying things that were perhaps prone to break, prone to need replaced, and things like that. And so he lent his expertise to that to make sure that we got to a good, sound design. So I am happy to sit with you and have a conversation then about, okay, well, how did that committee get to those things? I am happy to pull those up and go through those documents again with you specifically.
Okay.
But
refresh my memory, we did have a third-party review, correct? In other words, of the plan sets to make sure that things were covered.
That was where Mr. Kress stepped in. He took on that role to review those plans and make sure that indeed they were not excessive or extravagant, that they were the things that were, normal and customary for that sort of a thing.
Okay, we're relying on Tim, and I do trust Tim, okay?
You're relying on Tim, you're relying on your staff, and you're relying on the architect.
But I sit here, and I have to make a decision for the taxpayer, and for why I am here. Okay, for the betterment of my community. What I need to do is to have the entire council open to seeing what all we are going to do in that building and why we've come to $3,100,000. That's all I'm asking. Show me the plan, show me the setup, show me why we have to spend this money. I'm still not sold on the idea because it comes from one man to our council, but yet we don't get the opportunity to see how you got there. And that's what I'm asking for, Eric.
If I could just jump in. Mr. Kress, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have a lot of things to add, but I don't know how loud I'm talking in that room. I do apologize if I'm loud. We did a lot of what I like to call value engineering in this project. I will admit that there was a lot of red marks that came from me on scaling back a few things on here. Once the engineer and architects got that through their head, they kind of understood they weren't going to slide anything by Eric and myself. Like I said, the biggest thing is the funding issue, and I get where everybody's coming from that. Chuck, thank you for speaking up on where the money came from. I do appreciate it. But I get what Darlene's saying about the floor being raised a little bit, but that's also because our council is the area is going to be bigger. People can see us. It's a little easier to hear us, see who's talking, so on and so forth. As far as how much that's going to cost more, not enough to get excited about. So we did spend a lot of time on this. And Scott knows, I'm telling you right now, I look at this money as it's my own. So I think that our staff did an outstanding job. putting this proposal together.
Well, I'm not saying that it hasn't been done adequately or accurately. I'm just saying that I, as a council person, have not been filtered in with all the information that I need in order to make a decision on a yes or no for this. And if I cannot, it's come to my attention that maybe I would want to have a table to give us time as an entire council. Each one of you represent a ward. You represent your taxpayers. You were voted in by your taxpayers. You have the interest of the people of this community, and every cent that we spend, we have to be responsible to answer them adequately. Just give me, Eric, the information, sit down with us, show us everything. That's what I need. It comes back to us and we put somebody in charge, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we will be in agreement with them. And also, we may come up with some very cleverly worded questions that we need to have answered besides what I'm talking about tonight. I need answers to spend that kind of money. And we can't keep needing grants because we don't have the money to do it anymore. We had a $5 million grant and we had to match that. That pulls that out, Eric. And every time that we pull money toward a matching grant, that's why I'm always looking at you going.
Where's it pulling from? The money came from
You
COVID
had
and
it,
ARPA
but,
money.
well, Nan Dunn had said to us, what do you want to do with that money? And at that time, I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted it put back and then used for projects that were absolutely necessary for the people of our borough. And if $3,100,000 is absolutely necessary, just sit down and show me. That's all I'm asking you, because I'm relying on everybody else. And now that I have to make a crucial decision, I want to see it. Show me. Show me how we got here. That's all I'm asking. Because at one point, I was assuming 500,000, and then I'm looking at 3,100,000. Maybe I'm the only person, on this council that is hesitant. Maybe all the rest of you are completely okay with this. But honest to God, in my heart and my soul, I can't do this. Because every time we turn around, if we don't have enough money, it's that we're going to raise the taxes on the people. We've got to take this seriously on every decision we make with our people, because the economy is not getting any better. Maybe by showing all of us what we're paying for, this is going to be this and this, and we know that many times when bidders come in, the project will go over the amount. Okay, and I don't mean to upset the library, okay, but that's what happened with the library. We went way over the amount for the cost of the library, and our taxpayers were beholding on that. Give us a time to sit with you and find out exactly where that money is going to be spent. And with keeping in mind also that when you bid, it usually goes over the amount that you were aware of, or that they made you aware of. And before you do it, think of the people you represent, how that will impart into their pocketbooks, their livelihoods. I just want to be careful, Bill, please.
I need to
ask
other-
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Any other counselors have any?
Can I ask a couple things to kind of drill you real quick? So what happens if we don't spend that $3 million and we're under budget? What happens to that money then? Do we have to spend it, or what's
So
the deal?
the way that this is structured, again, you have a total of $11 million towards your capital building projects. 5.5 you got from the ARPA, 5.5 you got from the grant. If you don't spend that money, you're obligated for the match. Again, the match not coming from taxpayer money, but you're still obligated for that. What happened was when you went for that grant, we sold that grant on the idea of these are the improvements we're making. These are the amenities that we're adding. These are the things that we think this community needs, not only for the public administration side, but for the public safety side. There were certainly things on the police side that look in the back of the building one time, and you can see those things.
So I was wondering, well, can't we spend some of that money on the police station? Because I'm sure that's going to go over.
The 11 million is encompassing both projects, the police station and the public administration.
Going to go over budget?
We are going to try like hell to keep it there. I can't stand here and tell you exactly that, no, it's not going to go over, but as Crest said too, you know, as we put the scope of these projects together, we stayed tight to things so that we're there. This budget that was opened, the estimate on it was 3.4 million. So, you know, we're at 3.1 now, so we have a little bit of wiggle room. If something goes up, you know, we have room, we're still within the budget for it. But again, that's why you trust the architects and the staff to stay on top of those things and limit those change orders. Have, you know, if Mr. Crest needs to be attached to it, so be it. You know, I think that's fine too.
No, I get it. I was under the impression too that was sort of turnkey and like I heard we're getting new air conditioning and stuff, and what's wrong with the old one? What's wrong with the old race?
Part of the thing is, again, you have this $11 million to spend. You can slide into a building with old air conditioners, and then you're going to be coming here for budget requests to say, look, that air conditioning's old, I need to replace it because it's beyond its service life. You know, we had the Public Works Director take a look at those things, to look at the mechanicals. The architect brought their mechanical people in to look at them and said, look, if you're going to do this, do it right. You know, don't get yourself set up so that a couple years from now you're creating, again, like the library thing, you're creating this thing that's just going to draw on the taxpayers and have to be paid. You have it
to do it all at one time. Can't we do it in steps, like a little bit this year, a little bit next year, or something like that? Or
not under the grants.
The grant to run it all out.
This could be like the last, we'll be dead till they redo another building. I mean, this is sort of a once in a lifetime opportunity when we have this money.
Well, what
to be able
about
to
like
do
the
this.
entrance?
I'm still talking. I'm not done talking yet.
I'm sorry.
I'm not done talking yet. I'm saying it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I mean, you don't redo these buildings every couple of years. You just do it and it's done for like a long time. You know, the air conditioning, the cable, and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of have to do it all at one time because it's a grant, because they give you the money.
Yeah, well, we were just under the impression that it was ready to go. I think that was the thing for me.
I don't recall the mindset that it was ready to go. The layout of the building was pretty close there, but I always knew, or that the conversation was that for renovations, the estimate was always in the $2 to $3 million to renovate it.
But I mean, even a new entranceway, I mean, digging up the sidewalks and everything to put a new entranceway in, I mean, I don't understand why we need to do all that.
Yeah, and again, I don't want this to divulge into a design detail meeting, but part of the reason we did that was to bump that out, to create an air vestibule in there so that as you open it during a cold day, we don't have all that air rushing into the lobby, and then the borough is seeing higher utility bills to have to pay for that.
I mean, one of the things we did was we hired professionals to do it. We had hired professionals. The team that we've had has been from the very beginning, sizing, concepts, you know, looking at different properties, looking at different cost structures for these things, financing with Delta. I mean, we've worked with a whole group. I mean, the architects, that's what they do for a business. We're not architects. We're not mechanical engineers. We have to rely on them to do that. They have a budget to work within and to work below that budget. We're lucky to have somebody like Tim who has that experience dealing with, you know, mechanical electric buildings, not sites, but buildings.
I'm just worried about going over the ARPA budget, and then, because these projects never go on budget. So if it goes over, then it's coming out of our taxpayer pocket.
So the other thing too that we haven't really talked about is we're not done going after money. We have active requests for additional money. So we have congressionally directed spending things out there. We have LSA grants that are currently out there. We're constantly working with Delta, who helps the borough find money for these sorts of projects to help fund these things. That's not an excuse to say, oh, let's be nonchalant and think that change orders aren't going to happen. But that's where then we have to come to tough decisions to say, you know what, maybe we can't do that one thing we wanted to do, and maybe we have to pare scope back to cover that change order. If the change order is something that's critical and there's something that's maybe non-critical, then yeah, then we're going to have that conversation about how do we offset that. But, you know, again, we're going to continue to look for the other money sources so that we can do all of the things. But as we sit here now, by the architect's budget, we have the money to do those projects.
Eric, one other thing. It's really in my mind before I forget because of my age, okay? I am for doing this building for our police. I went through on a tour, and I wouldn't ask my worst enemy to have to do and put up with what our police department has to endure.
I'm for that. I'm for this. I'm for remodeling this and having it for our police. They're very much deserving of it. My problem is in 33 Frederick. That's where I'm at. And you're going for these grants, but you're not guaranteed you're going to get it. And remember that when we got that COVID money, where did that money come from? It came from taxpayers all over our USA. That was money from our taxpayers. It doesn't come out of the heavens free. So no matter which way you look at this, every one of you, you are representing money taken from the pocketbooks of our taxpayers, and it is to be used wisely. And all I want is to learn what you know. Share it with us. We're not stupid. I don't think I am. I just say, teach me. Teach me how you get to $3,100,000 for 33 Frederick. Teach me how you're going to get to the rest of it for this building. To me, this building is much more important because of what our officers have to endure day in and day out. They deserve a better building to put all of their safety of both themselves and the people of our community are well worth it, okay? And I want what's good for the borough. I don't want you to work in a slum area and not have the proper room and availability of everything that we want. But please, help us to get there with you, because I'm listening to Tim, but I'm saying if I've got to make that final vote, let me understand how you got to this price. Show me plans, show me things. I'm sure the rest of us would want to know.
How long's the bid good for?
I'm sorry?
How long's the bid good for?
I don't know. I'd have to look in the contract documents to see.
Just
But again,
to
you
know
know,
the
when
risk-
we're talking
the risk
about
of having to
scheduling
rebid.
and when we're looking
We have
at
a motion on the floor.
We do.
when we're looking at scheduling and where we're trying to get the project, you know, there is about a 6 to 8 month window for the renovations that are 33. That has to happen before the police station can start its work. That police station then is another 15 to 16 months of work.
Right.
So when you start to look at this and you say, oh, well, what's another month, let's push, it's a big thing because it starts to push a very long timeline out further. It starts to jeopardize certain things potentially with our grants.
Yeah, I'm not asking about the time. Just set up a time that we can comfortably make that
Counselor Funk,
decision.
his
I
point
want
is
to
that
be taught.
His point is that the time is now. I mean, council has to make the decision to move forward.
We have to make that decision tonight.
This evening, yes. Or
That
else
is
the-
not going to give us.
Or else the time is condensed and it may impact the
So-
project.
We have to rebid it.
So the question has been moved, it has been seconded. Are there additional facts or questions to bring to light before I call the question? Or we will be voting, sorry.
Okay.
Seeing none, I will ask for all in favor of the motion to signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Can I have the nays with hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. And just for the record, since you're online and we can't see you, Councilor Kresh, you were an aye?
I'm an aye, yes.
So I have 6, 4, and 4 against. The motion passes. Councilor Rowland, back to you.
See if I can do better on the
It's
next
easier.
one.
Can I make a?
Okay, the
make a
next one,
comment?
item 2.
I understand her concern. I mean, I think there's still time for everybody to see exactly the information, the plans and all kinds of stuff, so you can see that.
Good point.
I think
Even though
that
it's
can
just been
happen.
approved, you still have the right to see the
Oh, yeah.
information to help you.
I still have the right to.
You can still see the
See all that.
information that
See
you've
what you
heard.
wanna
Yes,
see.
I would like that for
Yeah.
all of us,
Definitely.
because I think
Definitely.
thank you, Barb.
Agreed. Sure.
It would help me to feel more comfortable
As-
in the way we're going. Yes,
We're
yes.
understood.
And as long as we're kept on top of it, Bill,
Yeah.
and that we're being taught
Yes.
and they're showing us, I don't have a problem. You know that.
Yes.
But I want to do what's right by the people.
Yep. Councilor
Bill,
Rowland?
as chairman of the Building and Grounds or Public Works and Facilities, I would be willing to chair an upcoming meeting as a project re-review in the next few weeks, where we go through all this to get everybody on board.
You want to have a meeting to share all
Just to
this
share with, right,
and the cost
as
of
the
where
new
it's all
program,
going.
or as the new chairman of Public Works, I would be happy to do that. And I'll work together with Manager Lewis and,
And if Tim can join us, I mean, he's done.
Tim would have to be there, of course.
Tim is,
I'll be there.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
I know you will, my friend. Okay? So anyway, if I
Thank
can
you,
then
Barb.
Back to you, Mr. Rowland.
continue to item number 2, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution 1412 for the bid results of the municipal bid online auction for sale of vehicle and equipments includes proceeds in the amount of $59,497.
So
That's-
motion.
Thank
Any
you.
discussion? All in favor of that one, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 3, consideration of motion authorizing the staff to engage with Delta and Dewberry to provide, an EPA community change grant submission for the Railroad Street and Chestnut corridor, implementing the first phase of the completed Hanover Streetscape and Downtown Improvement Plan.
Motion.
Discussion required? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor, give me an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a nay? Motion carries. Counselor Rowland, one more.
Thank you. Item 4, consideration of a motion authorizing the staff to proceed with bid advertisements for the Doss Alley project through a CDBG grant with York County.
So motion.
Thank you.
Anyone need to talk about it? All in favor, give us an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a nay? Motion carries. With that, we will move into public safety. You guys want to do that one?
I've got one here.
Fuentes?
So I'm going to step in here, and as the chairman of Public Safety Committee, it's my goal that we are given the opportunity to make recommendations and possible amendments to the rental registration inspection ordinance. This will help establish a happy medium so we may adopt an ordinance we can all feel comfortable supporting. Although the Public Safety Committee was able to do a review of the registration portion, we did not feel as though we had a sufficient time to give any further recommendations before it was brought to the council for approval. I understand how hard Council Member Hegbert, Dr. Rupp, Funk have worked on this ordinance for the last 4 years. I respect the substantial amount of time it took for Eric Maines to prepare an ordinance in its current form, despite dealing with the hard times during the COVID outbreak. To my knowledge, that information is correct. Contrary to many beliefs, the rental registration inspection ordinance will be here to stay. We must remember to ensure the safety of all residents of Hanover, especially our first responders. Who more deserves an answer when they call us to aid them? I have been informed that as we proceed over the upcoming 2 years, the idea is to make amendments to this ordinance as we go. With that being said, I do not see a reason for us to not take the time to allow the current Public Safety Committee the opportunity to discuss and make recommendations, corrections, and adjustments to this ordinance one last time before submitting it to the council for approval. In light of our mayor, who I respect, has taken upon herself to veto this ordinance in its current form, I would like to make a motion to table this vote and allow the rental registration inspection ordinance to go back to public safety for one more review. This is so our committee can make its suggestions and that hopefully we can all stand together by this ordinance with confidence. Our goal as an entire council is to strive to better our community and make this borough a better and safer place. Thank you. That's my motion.
I would second it.
No, so he made an intervening motion.
I'm not sure how that works.
Seconded?
So just, I was asking our solicitor for a point of clarification. Since the formal motion had not been made, you're not really voting, or, excuse me, moving to pull it as in the traditional way, to table it. You are voting just not to bring it up, or your suggestion would be that.
It was a motion to table it.
Motion to table, okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, please.
Can I talk
Yes.
about what effect that has? So because the ordinance was returned at the last meeting vetoed, council's obligation is either to reconsider the ordinance at that meeting, that is last week, or no later than 10 days from that meeting. So tonight, council has an obligation to act. If it doesn't act, that is, if it tables it, the effect of that is that the ordinance is not passed. In order for it to come back to council, it would have to be re-advertised as a new ordinance. So in a nutshell, if the motion to table is passed, the ordinance is of no effect. It cannot come back to council without a new ordinance number and a new advertisement.
Solicitor, I have a question now. If we were to make some amendments or add additions to that, we would have to advertise that as well. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's clarified to everyone.
Say that again.
So, Solicitor, could you,
So,
for lack of breath?
yeah.
I don't know, I just heard,
The
yeah.
question was, if it goes back to public safety and amendments are made to the current ordinance as it stands, we'd have to re-advertise that anyway.
Okay,
And that's correct.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
That's no different than voting it down and just doing it again.
Yeah.
That's right.
Next to say. So everyone's clear, it was moved by Councilor Fuentes, seconded by Councilor Rowland to table the consideration.
I just have a question, Brian. I just have a question. So what would happen at that next meeting?
Well, my hopes is that we would get the attendance like we're getting here today, and we had gotten that attendance here in the past when we were reviewing it. And I'm going to use a name out there, Isaac Griston has showed up, and some of the things that he's brought to the table were just outstanding and should be considered added to this ordinance if we're going to do that. And the same goes for both sides of this table. So why don't we take a moment to add that to that now and hopefully get a group effort to making this happen? We know that this rental registration ordinance is not going anywhere. We know that. We have one already. We may be able to build off of, or we could take what you've already done all this work to and then add to that and maybe answer some of the questions that the councilman here has had. Hopefully we're able to do that. I'm willing to take the time to do that. I know that.
I was at that meeting. I thought that last meeting.
Was a good one.
At the end, you said, now we're okay, we have
Right.
we have it
And
decided.
what I was
So help me
saying,
understand.
in regards to the registration aspect, we never really got a chance to review. And that was my hopes, and that was my promise. And everyone that's been to a public safety meeting knows that was my intention, was to continue on and review also that inspection portion. But if we're going to pass the whole thing as a whole, I think we should just take a couple of things, add it in there, and hopefully make it a little bit better and answer some of the questions that both sides want answered.
I think that'll take one more meeting.
I would hope that we could sit down and and I'll add a meeting for next month if I have to. I'll add 2. That's how much time I'll take to do it.
10.
If it gets struck down, it gets struck down, but at least I'll take the time and I'll know in my heart that I took the time with it to make it right.
The ordinance.
For everyone.
I just have a
That's all I have.
procedural question of you as the committee chair or any other committee
Yes, sir.
members to shed light on. It was my understanding that it came from the committee as endorsed before council when we voted to approve it a month ago.
Yes.
So it came with the committee's endorsement, you're now saying
Right.
that's changed.
And then when we looked at this and brought it to the table and everything, then later on had a meeting where we did a review of it with the public. Okay? And so when we did that, I'm sure even our codes department can tell you, there was some pretty interesting things said that could be added to this ordinance, at least to give it a little more structure, a little more clarity. And as far as I'm concerned, that didn't come up till after the fact. So now that we're here, I just don't feel that we had a sufficient amount of time. Am I willing to take the time? Yes. Do I really want to make these guys have to do it all? I don't want to have to make anybody do it because I know how they feel. And all of our time is precious, but I will take the time to do that. As many meetings as it takes for us to do that. But I would hope that we could move it quickly.
Same as Bill's, because I thought it came from committee endorsed. I mean, I thought that's how.
It wasn't until we came back with that meeting and did that review that you were at the last time.
Yeah.
That's when we started to see, I started to see
I thought that's how it got
bursts
on
of
this. I'm confused.
No,
That's how I
but
thought it got on that agenda.
we had moved it to advertise it before we had that meeting. We moved to advertise the ordinance as is. If I'm positive, we moved to advertise that ordinance as is before we had the meeting in which we looked and reviewed it and discussed it with the public. And we only did the inspection or the registration portion. So I just want that to be clear that we didn't even feel that we had enough time to do the entire ordinance at that meeting. We felt registration, and you were there. It took the entire.
Good meeting.
It was a great meeting, and I just felt that having people come in the way that they did was fantastic, and to get that sort of attendance and to get this sort of attendance, it's fantastic. And so let's look at that and hear both sides, and if there's something we need to add, let's do it. Let's get it done, you know? And I respect the amount of time you guys have put into it. I know you have. I went back and reviewed minutes. I pondered over this thing. I prayed over this thing. And I can see pros and cons on both sides, but I just think that the people deserve an opportunity, and the committee deserves opportunity to give their recommendations based on what they say when they come in. And that's what I'm hoping.
We have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to ask.
Which motion?
So the motion is to table, which, again, a motion in the affirmative as in approved to table is in effect the killing of the ordinance that was previously voted past that we're
Are we more
discussing.
concerned with, do we have the registration down, that we understand that, but the problem we're having is with the inspection? Is that what we're having problems with, Brian? Is that where you're coming from? Not the registration,
I
but
would
the...
respectfully disagree.
No, I'm just asking a
No,
question.
I'm gonna tell you how I feel about it. I mean, I've been on the fence for a really long time, and I'm really tired of being on the fence and feeling like I'm being bullied into making decisions that I am not comfortable with. I believe we should have separate, a registration and an inspection, not in the same unit. Because without knowing the registration, without knowing how many, and you're not going to get all of it, but you can have a semi-completed registration. You can know it within some amount of money what you're going to be getting. And from that amount of money and how many rentals you have, and code enforcement can go, okay, we have 3,200 rentals. I need 4 people because it's going to take an hour and 30 minutes. You can build, a registration lays a foundation to build on the inspections. You've got to have a firm foundation before you can just start throwing things at us and at them. I don't think tenants realize, I don't think you realize what you're going to be in for. I mean, I really don't think you've thought it through. You're listening maybe to one voice, and pardon me, you know, if I'm saying that to you, forgive me for that, but you're listening to one voice. You know, landlords are smart people. Maybe we're not all, you know, where you think we should be, but we bring something to the table, and I listen to my tenants, but I don't think you really realize, you know, what you may be in for with even in inspections, and that's why we need the other meeting. I want to know what's going to be on the inspection. Don't you? Yes. Don't you want to know, tenants? Don't you want to know what's on the inspection?
Councilor Greenhold, you're addressing council.
I'm sorry. I let my passion take over.
I know you're passionate.
But forgive me.
Can I ask any committee member to respond to my question? Because there is an existing registration on our books, so to speak, did you guys entertain why it is not even close to successful? Did you hazard speculation?
Definitely.
Why isn't it working?
I think the police and the people in the fire, the police, fire, and the enforcement people talked about that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been referred to several times, and I believe as Councilor Greenhold expressed, let's get the registration down. Not saying that's neither a good nor a bad idea, but we do currently have a registration ordinance.
Well, what's the problem?
If it's just about registration, why isn't it working?
Well,
So
I thought it
I'm asking if
was.
that, and I'll conclude in a second.
I thought it was.
I'm speaking to council, thank you. If the system's not working, why didn't you start with, or did you start with what's broken about the system? That's my question.
As far as public safety is concerned.
As far as getting
the ordinance
registrations.
The ordinance was something that came to us, it was presented to us and put on the agenda. And then we addressed what we had on the agenda. So, I mean, we just, the previous inspection and registration or inspection ordinance wasn't something that was on that agenda. This current one is.
Right.
In form of XXX, okay, that was its name before it got a number. And now it has a number. You know, so we looked at what we had and we moved on what we had. So I made the recommendation, and it's public knowledge, that maybe we should separate the two and pass the registration now.
Yeah.
It said that we need the inspection portion of it to make this work. That's what we were told. So we started moving forward on what we could. But then more information started coming in and more people started speaking. And then we saw that this is a bigger thing than what we kind of expected it to be as you get your list and you move on 1 month to the next. So it does have a lot more to it, you know? It should have a little bit more to its body. And that's what I'm hoping for. And if we've got to pass the registration portion now, then that's what we need to represent and pass the registration portion now and work on inspection, as she's saying. But if we kill this one now, as you're saying, it's not being killed because it's not going anywhere. We all know that.
My question again is, if we currently have a registration ordinance.
We have it.
Why isn't it working?
That's a question we're going to have to
Well,
ask.
how would we know it's not going to work later? If we can't, what about when we pass this? What's going to change? What would make it change?
I believe that the people who were favoring the overall process for reasons of safety were saying that in order to get it enforceable, to get people to register, there had to be some type of a enforcement provision, that they had to be linked together. The first you said this, and it's an interesting concept, to separate them. I would still potentially believe that we do need both. We'll see, maybe not. But I'm just, when you separated the formula there, the question in my mind, it just begged to be asking, why isn't the current registration process working? And I've yet to hear an answer.
If you follow,
I have an answer. There are several reasons. Our prior code department before Chris, I believe, was not really enforcing it. It's very dated, so it definitely needs to be updated and brought up to current date. Every landlord I spoke to wasn't even aware that the registration even existed. So I talked about that we really need to do a better job with using our newsletter and any way we can. Representative Kate Klunk even said that she would help with some community education to let landlords and tenants know that registration exists.
I'm going to say that I'm not upset about this bill. I'm really kind of cool with it in passing it because I spoke to so many people in borough management that really tended to have it together. This isn't all going to come down at one time. Can I ask Chris a question? He's our code enforcement.
Sure,
Chris, there were reasons why we put the registration and the inspection together. And I understand that. It isn't that we're going to harm our people of our town with the inspection bill. This is going to take 2 or 3 years.
I would just like to say before you address the question that perhaps between you and the manager, it seems like whichever one of you wants to handle the response.
Thank you.
I'm fine.
Both of you?
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
So I think we need to back up a second. And I think what we need to do is review things that actually went on in the public safety meetings, okay? I think you had all your public safety chiefs that sat there and explained why we want this ordinance, so on and so forth, and why we feel this is important. I feel that there's been many, many things that have been demonstrated, in fact, in the past week, why this, or less, and, why this is important, okay, right here in the town. With that being said, we talked about the old ordinance, okay? And I've heard everything from A to Z on the old ordinance. The fact of the matter remains is, quite frankly, the old ordinance wasn't kept up with. In fact, the person that can enforce the old ordinance is the borough secretary. That's how it's listed, okay? So when this all came about and was worked on 3, 4, what are we going to be now, maybe about 5 times, something like that, revision that this is going to be going through, it was put together to be both the registration and the inspection portion of it. Why? Because of the things we were finding throughout the town. Now, it's not just code enforcement finding this. As you heard, your public safety chiefs have sat up here and they've all told you different stories of what we're finding. That hasn't stopped at all, okay? In fact, on a daily basis, it's happening. But yet, I'm sorry to say, here we are again, okay? I've heard both sides of the argument, I understand that. So when we took all that together, and the public safety chiefs met, and we put the new ordinance together for all of you, we said there needs to be at least a 2-year project where we went through this, got the registration in place, and then only started inspections, knowing full well that any time within that 2-year period, if there was a problem or if we saw that we needed to change something or needed to bring something back to all of you as the governing body to update that ordinance, we would work then with in concert with our solicitor, and the public safety chiefs would work in concert with the manager as well, and we would bring that back to all of you. That's why that 2-year break, as it were, was put into that ordinance. So we would not go out and just immediately, that's it, we have this ordinance, we're going to hit the street, that's what we're going to do with it. That's what, it was not about that. Now, I've heard we don't know how many rentals we have in Hanover. You're right, we don't.
Yes.
I don't have a clue. I've heard 3,300. Of course, I used an arbitrary number, 4,600. That's been thrown around, more times than not. But I don't know. I can't tell you how many rentals we have. If you're going to sit here and you're going to say to me, well, Chris, is it true that you're finding rentals in attics and basements and garages? You bet. You bet. We sure are. I have people who just 2 weeks ago were renting out their shed. They ran an extension cord out there so they could have a television, and they would let them use the bathroom on certain periods of time. They could go in and they could shower twice a week. And that cost them $800 a month. Okay? If you're sitting here tonight and you're asking me, is there a problem, is there a need? The answer is yes, there is. We've put the package together. We've given all of you the package. Okay? It's been vetoed. That's democracy. Okay? That's government in action. I get it. But you're to the point where we have to decide something. That's where we're at.
Can I just say one thing? So you said the secretary, as the registration stands now, the secretary has to do the enforcing and all that. What's that have to do with getting a total number of registration? We're just trying to get the amount of people to see who are registered, to register.
If I'm understanding your question, you're asking why we need to know how many rental units we have.
What's the secretary have to do with getting registration?
Because the old ordinance, that's how it's written. The ordinance hasn't been kept up to date.
The secretary, from what I understand, was the big problem because the secretary had to take up all her time to enforce everything. But she's not enforcing anything. We're just trying to get numbers together.
And again, I'm not understanding your question. You're asking, on the registration side of the house, why we need to know how many rental units we actually have?
I'm just wondering why our current registration doesn't work, why you're not trying to get that to work. And the only thing I heard you say was because of the secretary having...
We do try to get it, we do try to gain, my department tries to gain voluntary compliance on it. However, Secretary Felix would have to enforce it. That's the way the ordinance is written.
That's the old ordinance.
That's
right?
correct.
That's why we're putting up.
So that's
and
when we
putting
put
in
together a
the
new ordinance. We
right?
put both together.
Can we just change the old ordinance that was just referred to as the current ordinance? It is.
Yeah, the current.
If I'm receiving that direction, I will certainly work.
Just in your communication right now, I think you're asking, Bill. In your communication, refer to it as the current ordinance, not the old ordinance.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
As the current ordinance stands right now, if that is the direction, then our department will work towards that direction. However, there was a newer ordinance that was developed, and my department was tasked with tweaking that ordinance and bringing it to all of you.
I understand.
That's why we're here.
Solicitor Schultes would like to say something?
So can I make a comment? The last meeting, or I don't know, in the last month, Representative Moul was here, Dan Moul, and apparently he owns some rental properties here in town. And he made a comment that kind of struck me, and I mean, he's a pretty bright guy by all means, and he said he didn't even know anything about the registration requirement. And I think that sort of answers part of your, earlier question, why is it not successful? I don't know that everybody even knows about it.
Well, was that because it wasn't put into play? It was there, but no one enforced it. Is that what we're dealing with?
Yes, that's correct.
Well,
Okay,
or no
thank
one
you.
read their
It
way.
was not enforced. And now they're putting together in order to make it better. And Chris has explained this so many times. You don't run frightened from this. You face it. We're all in this for the benefit and the betterment of our town. I'm not overly concerned. I know we're going to work it out, but we have to put this into play because we've worked 4.5 years on this and we've gotten nowhere for you people. None of you. And why do you run frightened? What is it that frightens you about this inspection and the registration, okay? So if you have questions, you can continue to bring them forward. But I'm willing to work with these people who have shown every effort possible to make it better.
I need to
Okay.
let Solicitor Shoulders.
I'm sorry,
address.
I'm on my bandwagon, sorry, I'm off.
No, thank you. Solicitor Shoulders?
Would you entertain a question? Would you entertain a question?
No.
Would you entertain a question from the public with a 30-second question?
No.
Would?
No.
So
I thought she asked a question.
to clarify the existing ordinance and what it was put in place for, and we're talking about an ordinance that is extremely old. It's virtually 5 paragraphs, right? It was designed to provide the borough data for its per capita tax collection, period. That's what it was for. It hasn't been, it's virtually unenforceable in its current status, which is in part why this current ordinance sought to basically replace it with a registration program that's different. The borough doesn't collect per capita tax anymore. It's a zero rate. So there's really no need for that ordinance in it for the purpose that it was enacted years ago. So this ordinance just dealt, if you're talking about why don't we fix the registration piece, that's what the ordinance tried to do, right? It actually replaces it. So as to the the registration piece, that was the purpose of the current ordinance. But as Mr. Miller said, it was combined with the inspection piece, delayed 2 years. So that's the status of the current ordinance.
Thank you.
Councilors, any additional comment, clarifications? Again, we are about to vote on the motion to table, not to approve, but to table.
So tell me again, tell me again what happens if we table it, then
It goes away. It would have to come back under a new form, a new number, and I would suggest that we put it through the same rigorous process that we
So we
had
start
tried
all
to do
over
the
again
last
then?
time.
So we would
I-
have to start all over again.
I'll just
From
speak
scratch.
for staff. It seems like we have a natural starting point. It seems like there's a lot of interest in the room and in the community. It seems like the committee has gotten some good information, but would like more, potentially. So I mean, I guess in the old tutorial as to how a bill becomes a law, yes, starting over, but I think there's a body of work there to start with.
Bill, do you mind if I answer, Dr. Ruff?
Yeah.
My intentions coming out here today was not to let what was already put together go away, but to add to it and make some slight changes. So, and give our recommendations to what we have now, and maybe clarification with those recommendations being added. That's my hopes. So if people think that it's just going to disappear, that's not the case. Obviously, it's not going to disappear.
But it will.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So,
Well, it will.
It will
Then
at
we
this-
start all over
it-
again. I trust the people that work here, the people that put their lives on
I
jeopardy
do
every
too,
day to go
very
to some of
much
these
so.
horrible places.
I
You
do
wanna
too,
live in a
very much
shed
so.
with a wire coming out there to give you TV? That's the kind of stuff they see all the time. Never mind. I'm
well,
sorry.
and I
I'm
get
sorry.
that, and I understand
sorry.
that.
It's
No, I
not
come-
against you.
No, and honestly, I just think it needs more discussion. Like, we can do that. We can make that happen. I'm offering my time as the head of that committee, chairing that committee to do it. I'm telling you right now, at the table, on record, I'm not just gonna let your inspection and registration, the time and money that we invested in registration, looking at registration, just go away. We're gonna reintroduce, my point is to table it, reintroduce it, and try to move forward on what we have and build on what we have based on what Chris has also introduced us. They're in that committee too, sitting with us, just like they were there when you were there.
And they're frustrated too.
I understand.
Anything else to bear?
I just want to say one more thing.
Yep.
I think my intention for another meeting would be to let them know what is being inspected. I just
That's
think they should-
clarification.
Intention all along, that's why there was a 2-year hiatus put in there, and there was going to be more public meetings and things as all that was moving along, and I think if everybody goes and looks at case law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they know that you do have to first find out your registrations and how many units you have, so on and so forth, before you start charging, and then there does need to be a business plan, so on and so forth. So those things were put into place. That was the plan all along. I just wanted to point that out.
I think we can do that, Brian. We can still do what you want to do.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to each individual councilman right now to decide to table it or not, on their own. Decide with their heart, do they want to table it? Do they want to look at us re-looking at it one more time, giving it a whirl one more time? Or do you want to pass it now? That's up to you to choose to do that. But I know my intentions are as the head of public safety, and if you want to know what that is, then by all means, show up. Come see me at Public Safety. I'll be there.
I think it can be done. I think what you want to do can still be done.
I think it's still, but at the end of the
Okay,
day,
never mind.
also,
Guys,
it
let's
would
make
be
this
amended.
group-related, not personal.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question between the manager and Mr. Miller to answer. The enforcement piece, what is your vision for its development? Is it in the committee? I know you've made reference several times to over a 2-year period, but you don't have an enforcement position or policy in place yet, correct?
For the actual rental inspection, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, so essentially what'll happen is what was, the plan was, or the vision was, within that 2-year period, is to have more meetings at the public safety meeting level and explain exactly what we would be looking for in a life safety inspection, okay? The amount of time a life safety inspection should take, how they would be scheduled, so on and so forth, and move on from there.
Mechanically, then, how will that piece come back to council? Will that come back to council for council's approval, or will that be staff initiated?
I think it certainly could come back. That's not the point. I think we need to have a count as to how many units we have before we can give you a solid answer on that.
Agreed. I'm a mile above this thing right now, looking down saying, okay, we've got the registration component, we've got the inspection component, and then, but I've heard you reference several times that over a 2-year period, the inspection portion will be developed. And I know that we will do that through a public entity, that being our safety committee, that everyone's working on. So you have, in essence, 2 years, if I understand what you're saying to the committee, before that would come in, before you would need to arrive at something, is your time frame. Will that, my specific question, will
Would that
that?
be going through
Let me get my
public
question.
safety?
Yes.
Okay.
Will the specific enforcement, the inspection, come back to council for approval? Or are you going to develop it?
No, we can certainly,
Certainly.
it's not a problem at all.
Come up through public safety
Right.
to council for approval, yes.
That was the reason why.
Yeah, this is an enabling type.
Right, it was the reason why, to be quite honest with you, I made the suggestion to build in the 2-year period so we could work towards this goal of the inspection.
Because it's could be
And to be honest with you,
debatable and controversial.
we're going to need
and-
at least a year on the registrations so we know where we're at least a year on the registrations, if not
In the
more.
meantime, you are doing inspections still, which,
We're doing inspections as if, when we're receiving calls and complaints, so on and so forth.
So your inspections currently are reactive and
Not
we're hoping-
proactive.
When we're hoping that,
correct.
that sound stewardship of safety is through being more
I-
proactive.
If it pleases you, Mr. Chairman, I can give you an example.
Please.
The other day, responding along with the Hanover Fire and Rescue to the fire on Broadway. There was not one working smoke detector in a 3-unit building. While we were there, that fire, obviously was caused by an electric bike. There was heavy fire in the one apartment. The gentleman actually woke up. He was trying to beat on the door to get somebody else up. If I was told correctly, and Chief Clouser's behind me, so please correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But the people didn't speak English either. The Hanover Borough Police Department was there immediately, smashed a door, went in, and started rescuing people. They rescued, a family, husband, wife, baby, okay? And the only smoke detector they had in the entire apartment was outside the shower unit and did not work. On the upper floor, the only reason they knew they had a fire is because the apartment started to fill full of smoke. The father was on home dialysis and had to get up early in the morning to hook himself to the dialysis machine. And as he was sitting there taking his dialysis, the smoke started to fill the second floor apartment. The Hanover Borough Police Department was, again, instrumental, as the fire department was arriving, in trying to alert and evacuate the building. With that being said, as we went through the building, we found frayed wires underneath carpeting. Okay, it wasn't malicious intent, it wasn't intentional at all. But it's something that could have been prevented. We also found that there was an attic bedroom that was taking place there with 3 children sleeping in it. And the extension cord ran up the stairs. I don't know what else to tell you. Your public safety chiefs have sat here and have told you what's going on in your community. Okay, we've been honest with you. I don't know what else to say. We've given you a product. We've said that there would be a 2-year moratorium on the inspection so we could ease into it and work together with everyone. But yet, we've had this explosive conversations that have went with this, okay? And here we are. Those are some of the things that...
That 2-year moratorium, let me stop you right there, Chris. Brian, I know what you said. But with that 2-year moratorium that Chris is talking about, I'm sorry, Chris, that I interfered with you talking. It comes back to public safety.
Correct.
We are going to have
Correct.
a very active say on all of this.
Let me ask this question though. If we find that we need to make amendments.
If we find what?
If we, within that 2 years' time, when we find we need to make amendments, does that need to come back to council, be advertised, numbered again?
Absolutely.
So we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing.
To any ordinance, it has to come
It's
before
going to
the
have,
government.
it's a living, breathing entity, the way I look at it.
And I get what you're saying, but it still has to be amended properly and it has to be advertised properly. Each thing that we change over the course of 2 years as we find them, correct? And because I support you 100%. You know I will.
Right.
And here's my thing, is right now we have an opportunity to add a few things to help clarify for both sides and get the support of everybody. And that's what I'm hoping for with tabling it for now and putting the time in. Outside of that, your vote's outside of my hands, and then we'll vote to yay or nay it, shoot it down, whatever you want to do after that. But
Well, you're
as far as I'm
saying add
concerned, I
a few
just want to give
things,
it that
but
chance.
what you want to add may not be what we need down the line, and we'll still have to change it. So why not move ahead, push it through, and then we'll work with it, and the public will be informed. I think that's what they want. That's what I want, because if we send this back, we're starting all over again. We're delaying precious time to help our people. So I'm very confident that they know, and I trust them, and I trust our borough management. I do, Margie. I know you know, and I will, and Mr. Kuhn even brought it up, okay? So what I'm saying is, why are we so afraid to move forward, knowing that we are going to change things, and even if you change these, Brian, there are going to be other changes that we're going to have to go through. So why not just move ahead, move together, and get it all together for our people of the borough? Why
Okay.
not?
I'm gonna,
President Ricard, could I ask Solicitor Schultes a question?
yes, you may.
Solicitor Schultes, if we pass this ordinance as it is, and we go back to public safety, and public safety over the next 2 years develops an inspection form, does the proposed ordinance support an inspection form approved by council to be added to the registration portion and inspection portion? Does the ordinance have to be changed to support a form that public safety approves as a part of registration and inspection over 2 years?
So are you talking about an administrative form?
Yes, sir.
I think no. I mean, does council have to approve it? No, but the process here is that council pretty much approves everything.
We would want council to approve that.
Oh, yes.
So, but it's not an ordinance amendment. An administrative form that supports an ordinance is not. an
That would
ordinance.
not cause the ordinance to have to be changed.
Correct. Correct.
So you're asking us to approve something that we don't know what's in it?
Asking you to approve something that you're going to have a hand in developing.
But I thought didn't you just ask the solicitor that he said, no, we can't change that?
No.
No.
Public safety team would be developing the inspection form, and then bring it to council, council would approve it before we would implement it.
Oh, I thought you said no. Okay, no.
Okay.
I got it. I got it.
All right, so again, the question before us is to table. So I will ask Secretary Felix to assist us by roll call vote. Again, to be clear, a vote in the affirmative is to table, and a successful vote to table is in essence the end of the current ordinance.
So you want yes for,
Yes to table it,
and no not to?
and yes. So if you say yes to table it, you are voting against the ordinance, as crazy as that sounds, rather than the opposite. My job is to make sure no one's confused, okay?
I got it. We have a second?
Yes.
Yeah,
Scott Rowland
there was a second. Scott has seconded, yeah. So, Secretary Felix?
Dr. Rupp?
No.
Mr. Ricard?
No.
Mr. Bub?
No.
Mr. Cross?
No.
Mr. Lookenbill?
Yes.
Mr. Hegberg?
No.
Mrs. Greenholt?
No.
Mrs. Funk?
No.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Fuentes?
The vote, let me just hear you one more time. It's for my tabling?
Yes.
Yes.
So the motion failed to table because there were
Seven.
7 votes no and 3 votes yes.
Okay. So that will end the discussion on tabling. I will now need someone to make the motion for consideration of the actual ordinance.
So motion.
Counselor Funk, it's been moved, seconded. Counselor Rupp, any additional discussion?
Let's just clarify yes and no.
This vote will be yes, that you will be positively indicating by verbal response that you are in favor of approving the ordinance number 2369. And to be specific, it was the ordinance that council approved last month that came back to us because of the veto of the mayor. Now we are voting to reconsider that one final time.
We're going to reconsider yes, that we want it to go through.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got it.
Everyone clear on that, as muddy as these waters may be?
You're welcome.
I will ask Secretary Felix to again assist me in the calling of this vote.
Dr. Rupp?
Yes.
Mr. Ricard?
Yeah, 4.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Lookenbill?
No.
Mr. Hegberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Greenholt?
No.
Mrs. Funk?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
No.
Mr. Fuentes?
No.
So we have 6 in favor of the ordinance and 4 in opposition to the ordinance, so the motion passes.
The motion does not pass.
Yeah,
In
Motion-
favor of the ordinance 2369, right?
It fails. The motion fails.
so in order for it to pass,
Needed 7 to 3.
Oh, okay, we
It's-
needed 7, okay.
it's 7 votes.
Okay, I get it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that will, those of you following along, that will end the ordinance formerly known as 2369. Hopefully, we will do a better job next time and come back to you. Apologies on our behalf for mishandling it, apparently. Flipping the page over, it looks like we move into lighter skies, that being Planning Commission considerations. Councilor Hegberg.
Consideration of a motion authorizing the Hanover Borough Planning Commission to engage with Gannett Fleming's land use planning staff to review potential changes to the Hanover Borough zoning ordinance to address emerging land use issues and complete various administrative revisions.
I would second that, and I think it's a great idea.
Any discussions? All in favor of the consideration, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looks like that's all you had, Councilor Hegberg. We will look to our right, the distinguished Dr. Rupp. What do you have here? Parks and Rec? Mine says you.
I can do that, I can do
Okay.
that one, sure.
Sorry, mine said you.
No problem. I ask for consideration of a motion to approve resolution number 1413, declaring July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month.
Second.
Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Councilor Hegberg, will you do water resources for me?
Consideration of motion authorizing staff and legal counsel to proceed with the preparation of the necessary documents for a land swap of public and private lands along Wilson Avenue.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the consideration, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
One nay? Any
1
others?
nay.
Motion carries. Councilor Hegberg, back to you.
Consideration of motion to authorize the borough staff and the borough solicitor to proceed with preparing and submitting all necessary documents related to the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission lead service line replacement program.
Can we have Eric speak to that?
Eric, what do you know about lead?
Just real quick, so this was a last-minute addition to your agenda. It came about as a conversation with PUC where they made us aware that we need to modify our tariff. Our tariff is the document that we operate for our out-of-borough water service, and what PUC is asking us to do is to modify that with regards to our program for lead service and the identification and replacement of lead services. So you heard me last week talk to you a little bit about some of the progress we've been making in the conversations with PUC. They would like by the end of July that we would have our tariff at least submitted, or what they would call petitioned, to be adjusted. And so because of the timelines of that, I asked that it be added to the agenda tonight so that the solicitor and I can work together on that. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of is coming from the comments we got last week about lead service and some of the, can we make the pictures bigger? Can we improve things? We had Valerie, who does our communications in the office, make a really nice postcard flyer. There are copies of it upstairs. We're distributing them out to all the municipalities. So certainly, again, you now have something tangible that you can hand out to your constituents. We will be actively placing them at the windows of various township and municipal buildings, and certainly to anybody watching this, recommending to go look at that, scan the QR code. We are up to, I think we have 35 now, so I was at 5 last week, so apparently it started to work some. We still got quite a ways to go, but again, just wanted to add that to the agenda tonight.
This be in the
Eric,
newsletter.
thank you. Thank you for these, because they really,
Second.
I make sure they're handed out.
Okay, anybody, any questions? We have the motion and a second.
So
Seeing no
motion.
questions, I will call for the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Okay, we have management and official reports. They've all been submitted.
I do have one.
Okay, anything for the record?
If we could have Lizzie Baldwin, our library director, she just
good.
wants to go over a couple of things with you, and I will pass over, she's going to talk about grants. So I'm going to pass out something she wants to share.
Hi everyone, just for the room, my name's Lizzie Baldwin, I'm the director of the Guthrie Memorial Library. I just wanted to come today to talk to you about some grant opportunities that we're exploring at the library. So you may have heard that we were awarded the York County Cultural Alliance's Welcoming Communities Grant to place a mural in the library. And so you're getting copies of the concept drawing now from the artist. And so that, his concept, he was looking at something that's really unique to the area, Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs that you might see on like barns and things. He took that concept and he put in like icons and imagery from each of our surrounding municipalities that represent the greater Hanover area. And then along the edges are some images that represent industry, some of the Hanover industries. So you'll see potato chips and pretzels on there, for example. So that is going, this is a concept drawing, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what it might look like in the children's library of the library in the program room. It'd be about 10 by 10, and then along with that, we will have a Meet the Artist event where folks can come out and meet the artist as he's installing the mural and ask him questions about the process, and then we are getting little teeny tiny canvases that kiddos can come out and draw on and make, we'll ask, what is your favorite part of Hanover? They'll put theirs on and make a little mini mural together. And so that's that first grant. I have a second one, and then I can take questions if anybody has it. And then we are exploring applying for a grant with the Way Foundation to upgrade the building and get some upgrades and some repairs that are needed. So we're looking at getting 2 water fountains. None of the water fountains in the library currently work, and as you may know, with the heat wave that we just got, that's not the best. And so we're also one of 2 trail-friendly businesses in Hanover, and so we are looking at getting water fill and water fountain stations in the adult department and in the children's library. The grant would include, it's non-matching, there's no obligation from the borough. Financially, I've already gotten pricing on installation costs, so that would all be included with that, along with upgraded hearing audio technology for the sound system in the Bear Center, which also is not operational at the moment, and so that would be repairing it and upgrading it to be more accessible for those who are hard of hearing. We'll get some things that will like loop, and it's all very technical, but just in an overview, it'll help people hear better, and then also we're going to get some translation services with it that'll auto-translate the presentations in the Bear Center. We're also looking at getting an additional bike rack for the back of the library, and then an additional book drop for the back of the library, so folks have different opportunities to place their bikes and not just put them all over the place in the back, and then use the book drop and not get out of their car. So all of those things, and then these aren't facility upgrades, but I just think they're fun, and I would like to let you know we're looking at getting visually impaired reading assistive devices. So those will be able to be checked out for in-library use only. They won't go home because they're very expensive, but they'll be able to enhance in real time something that you're reading, make it larger, make it smaller should you need to, change the colors to make it easier to read, just to make, again, the library more accessible for people. That's kind of what we're all about. So it was a quick overview. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
All sounds good.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
Great.
Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I guess we will open up for our final public comments. In room, I have Sandy Moul. You wanted to be kept for the end. The best for last, I'm hoping. No pressure.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear tonight.
Into the microphone if you could, so we can help to hear you. You can pull it towards you. Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you here this evening. I come with concerns concerning the manner in which the library decisions have been handled. I have 4 points that I wanted to be addressed. There was a Sunshine Act meeting about 2 months ago, and when you exited, Mr. Upper, you insisted that there be a town hall meeting called to inform the library folks of the decisions that were made.
Can you speak up, please?
We can't hear
Yeah, we
you.
need the microphone closer, sorry. Harder to hear.
Is it on? So you exited the meeting insisting on having a town hall meeting to inform us all of your decisions. The issue I take with that is that that town hall meeting should have occurred before any decisions were made. When that meeting was held, we were informed immediately that we would not be going into the weeds. That's the phrase that was used. We will not be going into the weeds. So none of the questions, the technical questions that we had, were able to be addressed. It was just simply a regurgitation of the Keller report. Okay, the Guthrie additions to the Young Library was completed in 2005 and moved into in May of 2006. From the balance sheets that I've had access to, beginning in 2005 and coming into 2013, I was able to determine, with the exception of 2022, we don't have 2022, and I don't have the financials for 2016. I was able to determine that the library's assets and liabilities offset each other until 2013. 2013, there's a deficit of $277,123. It grows the following year, 2014, to over $500,000, $561,122. Nowhere in that annual report does it explain how we reached those numbers. Mr. Egbert has disappeared. Do we know where he is?
Probably went to the men's room.
You know, what caused these deficits and also resulted in a great deal of animosity towards this library. Mr. Holt comes in here on a routine basis and slams the library. He evidently had information in regards to these deficits, and I'm wanting to know why we don't have that information. That's point number one. Do we know how we got to those deficits?
Ma'am, this isn't a question and answer. We're hearing your concerns. If you could please use your time left in the
Where do
forum.
I get those answers?
I would encourage you to come in during regular office hours and ask your questions and let staff direct you towards getting an answer categorically to all of your questions.
Mr. Hedberg, you're on video threatening legal action against the leadership of the library on several occasions. At least 3 of those individuals have a combined service of over 100 years. I will not sit here and allow you to put a black mark, an asterisk, or a smear campaign against any of them without having evidence to do so. You are suggesting, by threatening legal action, that there is some type of malfeasance. I expect that to be addressed as well. Your accusations have resulted in the pilfering of the PA room and the hijacking of the Moul reading room. These discussions were kept secret and date back, as far as I can tell, to at least 2012. you have schemed behind closed doors to violate the deed for at least 12 years without notifying patrons, donors, and forbidding the library employees from sharing that information. Some of us did not know of your actions until a few days before that town hall meeting. We should have known years before what you were planning.
If I could ask you to, in as positive a way as you can, please try to wrap up your remarks.
Item number 4. Bruce Everett was my borough manager during the construction of the library, and also a member of the Board of Governors from 2006 until his passing in 2015. He would have been the borough's main contact on the library construction project. He would have had to approve every step of that construction process, whatever the delays were, whatever caused those delays. He had to sign off on any changes on each step of that construction project. Bruce Everett had a conflict of interest. Unbeknownst to a large number of us, we did not know that he was the beneficiary owner of the Get Library. I was told that Mr. Everett was paid lip service to the Hanover Library, all the while was stabbing them in the back. He hated that library.
I'm going to need you to wrap it up, Sandy, if you can.
We'll continue at another meeting.
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
And perhaps it would help if I submitted my statement so that answers can be forthcoming.
And come to staff and start a dialogue is the best place.
Thank you.
You betcha. I have a few more late arrivals here. Mark Becker, round 2.
Just briefly, I know it's late. I just want to mention that tonight I thought was the most progress we've made on this issue, the best synergy we've had in terms of a discussion in, I think, 5 years. And I think Mr. Ricart asked probably the most important question, and why aren't we enforcing the existing registration ordinance? And I think Mr. Miller answered it in a way that we finally, for the first time, understood his position, and that is because it's up to the secretary to enforce it. So my question for council and for Mr. Fuentes and the committee that's going to be looking at this is, why can't we amend the existing registration ordinance to allow the Office of Code Enforcement to enforce the registration requirement and also put more teeth in? So that's going to be my first request coming up, because I think that might go a long way to answering a lot of questions, resolving concerns. And my second thought is, when Mr. Miller was describing the recent fire, terrible situation, but I guess my question is, did he cite the landlord for failing to register the apartment? Did he cite the tenants or the landlord for code violations? Did he go back and inspect? I think these are questions that I have answers, or that we need answers to understand, does he have the tools he needs to move forward to successfully attack problems like this so they don't reoccur? So I really think we need more information on those points. I think they're important. I don't think the information was enough for us to understand what happened, to find out if he has what he needs to enforce and for safety purposes, and I thank you.
Robert Hoff. Oh, excuse me.
No problem.
I had a moment there.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. The problem, Mr. Chairman, with the project at 33 Frederick is the story keeps changing. And it's a history of projects that come before this council. The story keeps changing on how much it's going to cost and where the money is coming from, and it always doesn't line up. Once again, the story changes tonight. We never get the right facts, the straight facts and the consistent facts. But here is the one fact that's universal, and it is not undeniable, and you have affirmed it through your conversation tonight. Not all of you knew what you've been voting on for the last 2 months when it came to this project at 33 Frederick Street. And it just seems appears that only 2, maybe 3 council members had full awareness of what was the scope of this project, what were the renovations going to entail, what kind of windows were going to be put in, what kind of doors were going to be ripped out, what kind of walls were going to be torn down. Some of you don't know what you voted on in the last couple of months. Not at the April 10th meeting, not at the April 17th meeting, not at the April 24th meeting. That's the record. And that is the record you will have to stand on, and that's the record you will have to defend when it comes to this project. If you're going to have another re-review of this project, it should be done in a public forum where the community can come and see what you are going to do. What are you going to build? Why does this building need a $3.1 million renovation when it was described, and I'm not the only one that heard this, when it was described as turnkey? Maybe it's going to need some paint. Maybe there might have to be a revision to the entrance. It doesn't add up. And here we go again, the story changes. I spoke in April about this mural being put up at the library, and I was told by the borough manager that project wasn't going anywhere. Then here we are, it's back. The story changes. It's inconsistent. The public needs to know what are the facts and be told in a forum where everybody can understand it. And people say, oh, well, why are you wasting your breath? And I know. It's even a joke. You know, Councilwoman Rupp one time said, it doesn't matter if people come to this meeting. We don't pay attention to them anyway. Not only did she say it once, she repeated it twice in the same, like, a matter of 5-10 minutes. You've got to listen to the people in this town. More voices will be coming. It only takes one to stand up in time. But I'm going to try to set an example for other people, how to be engaged, how to not sit by and sometimes take a little bit of pain and have your voice heard and make sure this government is a representative government of the people. Thank you.
Mr. Austin Graham?
Austin Graham, 229 Broadway. I've worked in software development for almost 20 years now. We have this concept where you're never trying to get perfection on the first shot. You're doing the bare minimum, the MVP, minimum viable product. That's what you're shooting for, and then from there, you're constantly making adjustments to improve based on feedback that you got from the original thing that you put out. I understand government doesn't work that way normally. It's a very slow process, takes years and years to get anything done. On the planning commission, I'm seeing that more and more now. This ordinance tonight that was shot down was a great example of a time that we could have put something forward, a minimum viable product, worked on it for the next 2 years. It was in the plan to do that and constantly make those improvements. And it's sad that seeing this get shot down, we now have the situations that we heard tonight from Chris and others. These people are going to continue living in these situations for the next 2, 5, 10 years, however long it takes. I mean, depending on who you talk to, it's already been 5 to 9 years that this has been in talks. So I just wanted to voice my concern that we should try to focus on not getting perfection on the first shot, but getting something that works and then improving from there. Thank you.
Heath Chesney?
Man, it's a wild one. So, you shot it down, right? Here's what you just did. I'm in the field that you guys are talking about. Scott, you know that. 4 years plus of educated professionals that have credentials that would be able to stand up in the court of law as professionals in their fields and speak to hazards and dangers and things of that nature that would go into a courtroom where they would be seen as experts to persuade a jury. Okay, that's what these people are. Okay, if you would have voted on just the basics tonight, you would have stemmed a little bit of liability to get you through this, but you didn't. You willfully voted against it, knowing the hazards are here in the borough. You're supposed to protect us. You're supposed to give them money to protect us, and you didn't. So I hope, you want to talk about fees and money and worry about that stuff? Here come the lawsuits. Wrongful death. Malicious injury. Okay? When the ambulance chasers get wind of this, they are going to have a field day with this place. He's going to buy 4 Ferraris when it's all said and done. And I don't blame him. Worrying about money. All you had to do was vote for the basic. And then we could have said, we're doing the right thing. It takes time. And any court of law would have understood that the wheels of government move slow. But we willfully, knowingly, as of last week, knew about these hazards, and we chose to say, who cares? We want to know more. For crying out loud, guys, you set the tone for the committee. No one rushes you through a committee. You take your time and you do it. And when you're ready and you feel like you've got a product that's ready, you vote on it. And the majority of that committee agrees. And then it goes to council. No one rushed you through it. We need more time. You had all the time you wanted to have. Poor excuse. Terrible excuse. Makes you look so ineffective. Not pointing out anybody in general. Some governments that I've seen in the past 1 minute. I don't want to be disparaging to people. So some governments that I've seen in the last 30 seconds just set themselves up for some major, major lawsuits. And you don't have 2 years anymore, guys. You've got minutes. Minutes, because the next time it happens, and it's going to happen, we all know, we all see it, we're begging you to acknowledge it. Here they come in their terrible brown suits.
Mr. Riston?
Shame.
Again, my name is Isaac Riston. That's ISAACRISTON at 36 West Hanover Street. I'm a bit famous, I guess, getting named twice tonight, which is pretty cool. First thing I want to talk about is the York Dispatch article that came out this month. That stated that we're we're the 4th county in Pennsylvania for children who are exposed to lead poisoning. The reason I'm mentioning this is because Mr. Maines is asking us to do a survey to look at lead pipes in our, as consumers. And so seeing that article and having the survey line up, it's scary, to have people go through that. And I want to make sure that people in the public and everyone else is doing your job to make sure that people are testing at home, are doing the survey, because children are at risk, and it's sad to see that. At least with the Public Safety Committee, going forward, I don't want to see a committee ever canceled until this is done. I have full faith Mr. Fuentes will do that. And I know whether you want me there or not, I'm going to be there, right? Because this needs to get done. We can't wait until 2025 to say we're done with this. And I'm going to be in that room answering any questions. I've already given you umpteen evidence for why we need this, either legal or from the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs that backs this as well. Going through their training session again for the umpteenth time just to make sure I dotted my I's and crossed my T's. But at this point, it just comes down to a difference in ideology, and no matter of data is going to make you change. And that's unfortunate, but hopefully in some point in the future in the borough, we can look back and be happy with whatever council we have gets this done. And I hope that it's you. Thank you.
Okay, I will ask community media to open this up to anyone still following online or telephonically.
Those joining us via Zoom are now able to unmute yourself if you'd like to address council. I believe Mr. Spangler has his hand raised.
Mr. Spangler, what say you?
very briefly, I'm disgusted. I have watched you people waste time and money, and you finally got the registration and enforcement ordinance passed. And then what happens? Her Honor, the mayor, finds out that she has a veto power she doesn't even know about. She finds it out from one of our state representatives. No, I see she doesn't agree.
From day one.
You have just kicked the can down the road. You have peed away time, money, and effort, and you have done absolutely nothing. I moved into an apartment that never had a smoke alarm, because I always bring my own, not expecting any landlord to do it. I talked to my landlord. He said if that ordinance passes, he's just going to sell his place, because York has a similar ordinance, and when they passed it, he sold the property he had in York. I think what we've seen is none of you council persons receive Section 8 housing assistance, do you? Of course not. You're not the people who are going to die or be injured by violations of the code. You have just sort of thrown it all away. You have put your own slumlord preferences above those of the public you're supposed to serve. I'm sorry, my Zoom just went off, and I guess I've been cut off. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else online, community?
If there's anyone else who'd like to address council, you can unmute yourself and do so.
Okay, at this time, I will close the final public comment portion of the meeting and request a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.